now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero. It's time for the Billy C. Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're listening, whenever you're watching. I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant located on beautiful St. Simons Island in Georgia. Check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com. We'll give my man a call, 912-268-2328. That's 912-268-2328. Find out why I go all the way to St. Simons for an authentic Italian meal. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by our new 24-hour, 7-day-a-week television channel, network, whatever you want to call it, Billy C. Boxing. Check it out. All the information can be found at Ginico USA. That's GINIKO USA.com. We're available on all the streaming platforms, so check it out. It's for free, and not only do you get to see replays of this show, but all of the shows we've been doing over the last 15 years. And finally, today's show is being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. And you can get a copy of this book right now while you're watching or listening to this very show. Just visit BarnesandNoble.com or Amazon.com. Or if you're looking to get a signed copy, just visit our website or drop me an email, Billy@TalkinBoxing, TalkinBoxing.com. Coming up a little bit later on the show, we got Dax Khan scheduled to join us, as well as Alex Papali. I see he's up and about, so we'll chat with him. Want to talk about several things, fights from last night, also some heavyweight news, including my thoughts on the possibility, strong possibility, that the fight that we all want to see in the sport of boxing, which would be the two top heavyweights in the world collide, at least the two top heavyweights in my opinion, and that would, of course, be the number one heavyweight, Anthony Joshua, taking on, in my opinion, the number two heavyweight in the world, Deontay Wilder. Now, you could slip Tyson Fury in there at number two as well, or have the rematch between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. But the top three heavyweights, I'm specifically talking about the fight that we all want to see, which is Anthony Joshua against Deontay Wilder. I don't think it's ever going to happen, or there's a good chance it may never happen for quite some time. But first, let's talk a little about the fights from last night. Oleksandr Gvozdyk kept his title by stopping his opponent, Doudou Ngumbu, and it was officially announced as the 58 seconds of the fifth round. It was kind of weird what was happening in this fight. Gvozdyk, who is trained by Teddy Atlas, seemingly was in control of the fight. It wasn't one of his best performances. He was looking kind of out of his comfort zone while he was fighting Ngumbu, who was fighting in a very unorthodox style. And then all of a sudden, Ngumbu grabbed his calf. It seemed to me like it was almost like a, what happened when you're dehydrated and you get the pain in your calf, or other parts when you're dehydrated. It seemed like that. And then he couldn't continue, and the Pennsylvania Athletic Commission seemed kind of not knowing what to do. They were ready to give him 5 minutes to patch him up. It reminded me of the fight where they were giving physical therapy in the ring in Russia to allow a fighter to continue. But finally, somebody whipped out the rule book and said, hey, he can't continue. For whatever reason, a non-contact injury, he can't continue. TKO win for Gvozdyk. Joining me right now to get his thoughts on such a strange stoppage is my man Sal Rocky Senecola. Good morning, Sal.
Good morning, Billy C. How's everything in Lake George?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. I got a weird. I don't have you on my camera shot, so I'm going to try and fix that for a second. I see you on one, but not the other. But in any event, I'm doing okay, my man. I'm doing okay. What's your thoughts on when a fight has to be stopped from a non-contact? In other words, a fighter injures themselves by themselves, apparently, and then the fight has to be stopped. What's your thoughts on that as a fighter? And number two, don't you think the commission should have gotten that right, like out of the gate?
That's why there's multiple referees, multiple judges, multiple things there. Somebody should have known the laws, rules, and guidelines of what should be. Maybe they could have given him 5 minutes to stretch it out, massage it. I don't know. But bottom line is, it's boxing. 3 minutes you fight, 1 minute you rest in between.
Yeah, but why would they? That's what they started to do. The referee in charge, signaled to the timekeeper he's got 5 minutes, and everybody's kind of looking around. The referee is actually a good one. His name is Eric Dolly, who's a decent referee. He generally takes control in there. I've liked what I've seen in the past, but I was unaware of the rule, and neither were the commission people, and they were letting it happen, and finally they waved it off. I mean, I think that's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, Bill, and we come so far just to take steps backwards, and those are things that should have been, like I said, you got 3 judges ringside. Somebody should have known. They can concur with one another, but it shouldn't have been drawn out or like an indecision moment. It should be, hey, this is what happens. He can't continue. It's either no contest or a TKO.
Well, it should, by rule, it should be a TKO. Whether he had cramps in his ankle due to, I keep saying dehydration, and the only reason why I say dehydration is when you dehydrate, a lot of times you'll get those cramps and stuff.
It happens,
but generally it'll go away. And the amount of time that they gave him, it just seemed like a strange injury. What was even more strange is about to make fun of somebody's pronunciation. Everybody knows, if you've watched this show, even any time over the last 15 years, I've murdered many a name. Okay, the English language ain't so cute to me, if you know what I mean. But the truth of the matter is every time the way you pronounce his last name is Ngumbu. Okay, and every time Dre Ward, the former world champion, Dre. Every time he mentioned Ngumbu's name, he kept referring to him as Ngumbo. And I'm saying to myself, what's he thinking about? New Orleans? Is he thinking of some gumbo soup or what? But I thought it was kind of humorous, but that's me. But in any event, some other fights real quick we'll get to right now. I will talk to Dax and Alex about him as well. But in the heavyweight division, David Price, he won via a strange way as well. He fought previously unbeaten Kash Ali, who was 15-0 with 7 knockouts going into the fight. And I was shocked to see that David Price was actually the favorite in this fight. David Price has never really lived up to his expectations as a pro. But he picked up his 24th win by way of disqualification. It happened during the 5th round. David Price did land a solid shot, which appeared to rock Kash Ali. Kash Ali grabbed him and tackled him. And as the referee was trying to help him up, he wouldn't let go. It was like he was holding on to him. Then when you see that, he's biting him right on the side of his chest, above his rib cage. And the referee saw it and immediately disqualified Kash Ali for biting his opponent. And if you look online, Sal, you can actually see the teeth marks through the through the mouthpiece on his right, above his rib cage area on David Price. What's your thoughts about that?
Well, that's just blatant, and that's inexcusable. You don't do that. That you can't.
No, you can't. And Mike Tyson, we all remember his nibbling on Evander's ear. This wasn't quite as bad, but you're not allowed to bite your opponent. David Price gets the W, and that bite probably cost Kash Ali more than just the purse that they're withholding right now. It's gonna haunt them. Also on that card, Liam Smith improved to 27 wins, 2 losses, and a draw when he smacked the snot out of Sam Eggington until he couldn't continue anymore. The referee waved the action off at 2 minutes into the 5th round. And Eggington drops to 24 wins, 5 losses, with 15 of his wins coming by knockout. Also, some other fights. Angel Acosta improved to 20-0. 20 wins and 1 loss, with 20 of his wins coming by knockout when he knocked out former WBC champ Ganigan Lopez in the 8th round. 1 minute and 55 seconds. Lopez drops to 35-9 with 19 of his wins coming by knockout. And a guy who has been in discussion for a possible world title shot, and even according to Floyd Mayweather, regardless of going through the proper channels, against Gervonta Davis, Kingry Garcia improved to 18-0 when he scored a second-round stoppage over Jose Lopez, who drops to 20-4 with a draw. Garcia really had Lopez in trouble at the end of the second round, and Lopez could not get off his stool to begin the third. So they gave Garcia the second-round stoppage, rightfully so. And then in a really strange fight that I watched that I thought was kind of a travesty, there's 2 travesties here. First, this poor kid's name, because his name is Ray Robinson, and they bill him as the new Ray Robinson, and he's nothing like any Ray Robinson you've ever seen. But nonetheless, he's it's a sad but nice story of pulling himself up from a unfortunate situation, childhood, whatever. Philly fighter Ray Robinson. He improved to 24 wins, 3 losses, and a draw. Now, I say improved because I feel he won this fight. A top contender in Agias Kavalauskas was supposed to win this fight, and he was supposed to earn a shot at Terrence Crawford, who's fighting in a couple of weeks against Amir Khan. But Kavalauskas, with the draw, who knows what's going to happen? He fought like he couldn't figure out a southpaw that was boxing him in the new Ray Robinson. And the way the judges scored it, two of the judges scored the fight 95-95, which gave it the majority draw. I don't know how you could give that many rounds to Kavalauskas, because he just did not. I didn't think he threw and landed enough punches. He didn't work the body. I mean, Timothy Bradley was saying most of the night he should be working the body, and he should have been. The third judge had it 97-93 for Robinson. I kind of think that was a more realistic score. So what this means, if they're going to have a rematch, I don't really know. But that wraps up the fights from last night. The bigger fights, anyway. I want to talk a little more about the heavyweight division. Now, one of the big news in the heavyweight division, of course, was Deontay Wilder turning down a $100 million deal to sign a 3-fight deal with DAZN Network, and it would have given him his mandatory against Brazil, plus 2 guaranteed fights with Anthony Joshua, where he would have received a guaranteed minimum of $40 million each for the two fights with Anthony Joshua, and then the first fight with Brazil, $20 million. It was also reported by ESPN that he got another deal that I didn't hear about worth $120 million. It didn't matter. It could have been $500 million. Deontay Wilder turned it down to stick with Showtime. And then another interesting thing in the heavyweight division, Alexander Usyk, who's pretty much controlling the WBA as a cruiserweight, decides to relinquish his WBA belt. And now he has announced that he will be competing in the heavyweight division. He was supposed to fight a unification fight with Denis Ledebev. Now that fight is off, of course. Usyk is planning on fighting Carlos Takam. That hasn't been officially announced yet, but it looks like that. My question here for my man Sal is simply this. Usyk, even though he's a great cruiserweight, moving up to heavyweight, and people think he's got a chance, Sal, because of his boxing ability. The heavyweights of today are much bigger. This isn't like back in the Rocky Marciano days when light heavyweights and heavyweights were going back and forth. But today's model heavyweight, it's 230, 240 pounds. This is a cruiserweight that's the most he's ever weighed in a fight was 206, and that was early in his career. What's your thoughts of him moving up to the heavyweight division?
I think he's going to get killed.
Well, interesting.
I mean, he can have speed, he can have agility, he can have great boxing skill, but I mean, that's why they have different weight classes. And you're so right. Bob Foster was a classic example. You know, great light heavyweight, move up to the heavyweight division, forget about it. This guy, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I look at it this way. You know, he's a boxer. And a lot of these heavyweights today haven't really, you know, on their way up, they haven't really fought, you know, top fighters. And, you know, we look at a lot of these fighters and we wonder how good they really are. Usyk, we all know, is a quality fighter. But I look at the statistics, Sal. And although you look at his record, he's 16-0 with 12 knockouts, with a 75% knockout ratio. Of those 16 fights, only 5 he fought at 200 pounds or more, which is actually heavyweight. And 4 of those 5 was his first 4 fights. And then his last fight at 201.5 pounds was back in, he fought in 2015 against Pedro Julio Rodriguez and won a 7th round stoppage. He is 6'3", and he is a southpaw. But my question to you, Sal, is this. Luis Ortiz, he's 6'4". He, too, is a southpaw. But this guy comes in at 240 pounds. We saw that he stood his own with a Deontay Wilder. Could a guy that's an inch shorter, and assuming that he puts on 20 pounds, let's say he comes in at 220 or even 225, does he stand a chance? Even though Wilder's a 220-pounder, does a guy like Usyk stand a chance with his boxing ability?
I mean, anybody stands a chance any given night. But are the odds going to be against him? Probably so. Maybe stacked pretty high. I don't know. Anything's possible. Styles make fights. You know that. And it may be a great fight. You may have unique styles contrasting. But in the end, you know, that equalizer usually pulls him out.
Well, I look at it this way. The boxing ability of Usyk could give fighters all kinds of trouble. I mean, until Michael Spinks stepped in the ring with Mike Tyson, he too was beating bigger guys. So I give Usyk a shot. The only thing I'm not too happy about is that Usyk, even though he was a world title holder, he was able to give up his belt and then fight one fight and immediately become the mandatory to fight for the world heavyweight title. That I find, I don't like the way they do that today. You know, you got a guy that relinquishes.
I don't like the way they shuffle that deck.
Well, he relinquishes his belt, and he wants to compete at the heavyweight division. I give him credit for that. But why shouldn't he be forced to fight a couple of fights at least? And by the way, take on a top heavyweight. Right, and then, I mean, listen, Carlos Takam is no slouch. But to get a fast track, again, that's not fair to the guys that are working their way up the ladder, Sal.
Yeah. And that's been the history of boxing. You know the right people, you pay the right fees and money, you're going to get to the top of the ladder faster than people that have worked so hard and have tried to do it the right way. So, I mean, it's the politics of the game, unfortunately, for some, and beneficial for others.
Yeah, well, you know, I look at it and I say to myself, you know, I would, you see what I thought, and maybe I'm being selfish for the sport of boxing, but I thought that it was advantageous for a guy with the talent ability of Usyk to try to help bring more interest in the cruiserweight division. Now, I get it. He's 32 years old. He's probably thinking, well, you know, I'm 32 years old. You know, how much money can I make in the cruiserweight division? He goes and fights one of the top three dogs in the heavyweight division, AJ, Deontay, or Tyson Fury, and, you know, he can make a cash-out purse. I mean, that's got to be the main reason in his mind. I mean, of course, should he win a title, it would put him in the history books, but it's got to be about the money. What do you think?
I think that, and, you know, you're talking about a millennial fighter, and it's all about me. It's all about this. This is what I want. This is how I get it, and this is what I'm going to do. It has nothing to do with tradition, history, or anything else. It's what's the best thing for me, and how fast can I get it?
Well, you see, I don't know. I look at him as more. I don't blame him from the business side. I can't, you know, because it's a negative truth about the sport that the heavyweight division brings more money for the fighter than the cruiserweight division. I just wonder. You know, to tell you the truth, yeah, he'll make the money, Sal. But I'll tell you what, he beats one of those top three guys, and he's going to be regarded as one of the great fighters of all time because he did it, because the odds are against him. So in a way, you got to respect him for challenging himself.
And that I do. I respect every fighter that challenges himself, and that's what we don't see enough of, unfortunately, on so many levels. And it's so right. That's why Mikey Garcia, I respect on that level. All these fighters that try to do history blanketing kind of thing, you got to respect. You got to see where they're coming from, what they want to do in the history books, and how they want the sport to remember them, not just their family and friends.
Well, I'm not going to knock Usyk for taking on Carlos Takam. Takam gave AJ some trouble, so we'll see what happens. I wish him the best. My only hang-up is that he gets a fast track to a world title. That's just the way it is, I guess, now with the sanctioning bodies. I just, you know, no disrespect to Usyk, but I feel that you know, by him getting a fast track, it's preventing another fighter that had possibly worked hard to not get a shot. But in any event,
I know.
In any event, listen, we're going to take a short break. Sal's going to take a break as well, and when we come back, we're scheduled to have Dax Khan join us. So don't go anyways.
Billy C will be right back.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput. they put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. Why let a major appliance or system breakdown bust your budget or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy service people? Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with the huge bill.
You save a lot of money.
It's absolutely worth it.
If you don't have First American warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt. The innovative technology works to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
You know, similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belt won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
Listen to this important message. If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily on your back taxes, putting you under a mountain of debt. Tax 10,000 has years of experience connecting people with tax resolution specialists. Working through the IRS Fresh Start program, they will handle all the necessary forms, and if you qualify, you may end up saving thousands of dollars. Call Tax 10,000 at 800-773-4604.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace?
Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. Don't forget about catching us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right on our Billy C. Boxing channel. Giniko USA has all the information. Check it out. Giniko, Giniko USA.com. Joining us right now, my man. No, let me rephrase that. The man, the myth, the legend himself. Yeah. He paid me some extra money to say that. Dax Khan joins us. What's up, Dax?
Hey, how are you?
Oh, not too bad. What'd you think of Vodzik?
Of what?
Vodzik.
Vodzik, I'm sorry.
I had gumbo on my mind, but what did you think of Vodzik's performance last night?
He looked terrible last night. Even before the injury, and Ngumbu was able to, land on him. The unorthodox style seemed to give him some problems, but it was his first defense of his title. We have to expect that these guys are gonna, get a soft opponent. That's common in boxing, and let's just hope it doesn't become a habit. We waited a long time for the belt to leave Adonis Stevenson because this is exactly what took place during his reign. I'm not going to judge too harshly on him, and we'll see what happens the next time. Though Andre Ward and Timothy Bradley did bring up some points afterwards, especially Andre Ward, when he said, if I was the one responsible for doing that to somebody, I would never fight again. So who knows what was really playing on his mind with the Adonis Stevenson situation, even though he did say a few times that Stevenson is back to 80%, so it's not weighing on my mind. Then again, it has to weigh on your mind a little bit, and knowing that this is a guy not quite as talented as Stevenson, or not as big as Stevenson, not as hard of a hitter as Stevenson, maybe it made him a little bit hesitant. So we're going to have to reserve any harsh judgment for the future.
I've never been faced with that, thank God. And I know very few fighters really have, but there have been enough that you could talk about, especially guys like Boom Boom Mancini. But, both fighters enter the ring with the same risk, Dax. And, I guess, I don't know. I honestly, I know that they said that, being both former fighters, both world champions, that, they made that comment. But I don't know. Do you think really that happens? I mean, do you think that was the reason, or if it was just more the unorthodox style in Ngumbu that was throwing him off? I mean, he is a power puncher. He does like to sit down on his punches, and he wasn't able to.
It could be. It could be a combination of both. I don't know. It's only speculation. Nobody knows what's going through Gvozdyk's mind except for Gvozdyk. But you do know that I'm good friends with Gabe Ruelas, who also worked with us with the WBF. And I did a series of stories on Gabe. And even after his fight with Jimmy Garcia, when Jimmy Garcia passed away, still to this day, every year, at the time of that fight, that haunts Gabe Ruelas. And Gabe has been retired a long time. He went on, he defended world titles after that. He was in bigger fights after the Jimmy Garcia bout. And yes, of course, you walk in and you both have the same amount of risk. But, knowing that risk and when that risk actually happens are two different things. So we don't know. Again, we'd have to wait until the future to see what happens with Gvozdyk, with another opponent would step up out, to judge. Right now, can't really, I'm going to reserve the judgment exactly what's going on there. But if he should happen to perform like this in the future, there is no way that I could, say that he's as good as Beterbiev or Bivol, or even Kovalev maybe.
Let me ask you this. I haven't heard anything about that injury. Did you hear any follow-up about the injury that Ngumbu incurred?
Then the scuttlebutt is that he had an injury already.
Oh.
And that, it just kind of agitated in the fight. It was an old nagging injury that they hoped wasn't going to affect him. It's a world title fight. The guy's 38 years old. He hasn't had, exactly the highest profile stellar career, despite, having, quite a few more fights in Gvozdyk. So, from what I understand, that's what it was, and things just happened not to go right for him. It was unfortunate, but, it happens again. It's boxing.
A couple other fights I want to get your quick thoughts on. David Price gets himself back in the mix when Kash Ali bites him to get disqualified. What was up with that? Did you see it?
Yeah, I did, and not only did, and Ali was having his best round of the fight, but not only did when they went down and his face, you see his face go into Price's stomach, and as he gets up, then he puts his face back down to purposely bite him. It's not like if his head just went down, he tried to do the bite there and get away with it, but he was just so blatant about it. So
and he held on. Remember, the referee was trying to help pull him up. And he was holding on. He was holding on to Dave Price to make sure he got a full bite in. It was weird. It was really strange, man.
And I seen the actual photos of the actual bite mark itself. I mean, that it was brutal.
Oh.
You see clearly the outline of the teeth in that.
Clearly the outline. No, you saw the outline. You saw the outline of the mouthpiece with the teeth through it. That's how hard. You know what I mean? So you saw that the teeth bite marks were behind a mouthpiece. So, and that's hard, man. That's hard. But another fight I wanted to ask you about was Kingry Garcia. Ryan Garcia improved to 18-0, beating Jose Lopez. Not so much that fight, but there was a lot of talk, at least through Floyd Mayweather, that he was trying to set up Garcia to fight Gervonta Davis. I like Gervonta Davis. I think he's a talented fighter. I know he's heading down possibly the wrong path. But with all due respect, is Garcia ready for him?
No. I spoke to somebody the other day. Actually, I sent stuff out on social media the other day. I don't know what's going on over at Golden Boy. I don't know if Oscar De La Hoya. In fact, I alluded that Oscar De La Hoya has got to be back on drugs after his comment that Canelo would beat Kovalev, he would beat Smith. The undisputed super middleweight champion, and then he says if Andre Ward wants to come back and call out Canelo, Canelo will beat him too. Yeah. And then you got them, Ryan Garcia, he's a decent fighter. He's certainly a hot prospect. He's got a large fan base. But I think, they're hurting him more than they're helping him. They seem to be blowing his head up, making him think that he's at a level that he's not yet. And Canelo last night, I believe he said that Garcia is the best prospect in boxing. But I don't know if by design they said that or they have been missing fights of Teofimo Lopez and Virgil Ortiz Jr. because Ryan Garcia is not ready for one of them, let alone a Gervonta Davis. Yeah. They're going to rush this kid, and if they rush this kid, what's going to happen is because they have him thinking so high of himself, and they think, they have him thinking he's on the level he's not yet. He loses, and one of those guys are going to give him, a crushing defeat, and that's going to really hurt him mentally.
I agree with you. I think they're pushing him a little too fast. It reminds me of Fernando Vargas. Back in the day, they took that kid and they pushed him very quickly. Was successful. Had a huge fan base. I mean, so many similarities, with the exception of the style of fighting. And one last question, and I hate saying this guy's name, and it's not his fault, but that's why I always throw the new in front. The new Ray Robinson, I thought should have won that fight against Kavaliauskas. It ends up being a majority draw. What was your thoughts on that fight?
I just thought Kavaliauskas, he's very one-dimensional. Yep, he's a big power puncher, but very one-dimensional, which is kind of odd considering he's a two-time Olympian. I was sitting there waiting for him, to pump the jab. And on the other hand, Ray Robinson, if he would have just pumped his jab a little bit more, he would have really coasted to that on an easy decision. Neither one of those guys are ready for Terrence Crawford. I do know that Robinson holds a win over Crawford in the amateurs, but, the idea of either one of them in there with Terrence Crawford is just absurd. And what do you think of that interview with Crawford and Max Kellerman when Max Kellerman's asking Crawford on his opinion that Mir Khan stated, if I had fought the quality of competition in my career that he has, I'd be undefeated too. And Crawford just so relaxed, without blinking an eye, without being raffled, bothered, and he says, when Kellerman says, do you have it out for him personally? Crawford goes, I have it out for everybody.
Nah, listen, you know me, man. I love Terrence Crawford, and I hate when people act like he hasn't fought anyone. Because, Dax, you and I talked about that not only off the air many times, but on air when he was coming up. And people forget that he was brought in. But when he first became noticeable in the sport of boxing, he was the B-side. He won and upset the apple cart at least 3 times in a row before they shift gears with him. So I'm sorry. This guy has not had an easy path, and he's one of the best fighters. I love his demeanor. I love his no-nonsense. He says the right things. He thinks he doesn't have to do anything other than perform in the ring. And that's why I think he's such a great champ. And I'll tell you the truth, Dax, it's a shame that he's not a household name because he is the best welterweight out there.
We're in that era, though, Bill. It's that era where people thrive and they want to see somebody, and not just in boxing, period. They want to see people acting like an idiot. The more that you act like an idiot, the worse stuff that comes out of your mouth, the more that they can, the more that you can bring yourself down to a lower level that they can mock you, make fun of you, the more popular you're going to be, and that's unfortunate how it is. But you're right. Terrence Crawford is not going to bring himself down to that. Terrence Crawford does his talking in the ring. It's up to Bob Arum and those guys, to push him a little bit more.
Well, the truth of the matter is the fight that everybody wants to see. Keith Thurman, in my opinion, isn't elite anymore. He, maybe I was mistaken to even believe he ever was. I really don't think so. But Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford could arguably be the top 2 welterweights. I think it would be tough to. I mean, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch with Sean Porter and Keith Thurman and Errol Spence against Terrence Crawford and have the 2 winners fight each other. That would be great. But I just think that the top 2 welterweights right now have to be Crawford and Errol Spence.
I would think so, especially because Keith Thurman's. He was very open after he got married on how happy he is and how he had lost a little bit of his desire. To say he's not elite, I'm sorry, Bill. That's preposterous. Of course he's elite.
I don't think
he's
so.
undefeated. He's still a champion. He just doesn't have that desire and hunger that he used to have.
Oh, so being a champion and being undefeated makes you elite?
But he just doesn't have the hunger. Yeah, when you have, up until not too long ago, you were singing the high praises of Keith Thurman. I'm sorry.
No, I was singing the high praises of Keith Thurman prior to all of the excuses. You're right. But that goes back almost 4 years now, Dax. It's been a long time. And you know what? The last performances he has in the ring was far from elite. All you got to do is look at the last one. And people could say, oh, it was ring rust and this and that. I don't know. We're talking about Josito Lopez,
He changed his style, He did that even before that layoff, Bill. If you notice, he changed his style. He became a more of a boxer puncher. Even when he was fighting guys of that lower level, he did that. I forget who the guy is that Thurman and Spence both fought. Leonard. Bundu, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, now him out. Thurman boxes him for 12 rounds.
Okay, but wait a minute. Wait a minute. That fight, you're right. That fight changed Keith Thurman. But the big question was why? Leonard Bundu was never a hard puncher. This guy was a boxer that Crawford should. That Keith Thurman should have taken out. And it was a knockdown, drag-out fight. That's when I noticed that he wasn't as great as I thought. And I got to see him in the gym. Well, hey, listen, maybe if he fights somebody, he can prove it. But in any event, I would love to see it. Let's see him get in the ring. Let's see him fight somebody. Really,
And what about, before we go, what about that reporter, and I'm just so aggravated. Jenny Sushi, who's out there, now she's suing Kubrat Pulev because of that kiss post-fight last week. But meanwhile, she wasn't offended then. After he kisses her, maybe, he should have asked permission, but, they're friends. He, gives that little kiss on the lips. He holds her by, by the face, and they're laughing about it. A few minutes later, they're sitting on a love seat. They're talking. She follows him out to the parking lot 3 or 4 times. She goes out to a bar with Pulev and his team. She's lap dancing members of his team where Pulev is sitting right next to her. She's literally grinding and lap dancing. Now, all of a sudden, she's taking out a lawsuit against Pulev. Pulev is suspended by the Athletic Commission. She hires Gloria Aldred, who is known for representing these women that scream these false allegations. What is going on here? And you know what? It wasn't an issue until social media made a big deal about that kiss.
Well, unfortunately, in America, it's sue your way to the top, so maybe she sees a way to get money. But you know what? Let me tell you this. Pulev didn't help his case any by saying to his local papers in Bulgaria that she wanted more. She wanted more. And he says she wants to be famous. He's not that famous, number one. And number two, you don't say that in the middle of that. And I'm not, hey, listen, I think it's ridiculous when, personally, I think it's ridiculous that somebody brings out allegations after 20 years. That's even worse.
Right.
But it's sad. The whole way is sad.
No, maybe he didn't help his case, but like I stated, there's video, and I seen it myself, and I have the still shot somebody sent me. She chases him out to the parking lot 3 or 4 times. She leaves, she comes back, she leaves, she comes back after the kiss, and then she goes out to the club with them, and then there's photos of her sitting at the table drinking with them, and then there's that short video that somebody caught on their cell phone, and they uploaded, of her lap dancing and grinding like a stripper. Her breasts are exposed. So, yeah, maybe Pulev didn't help his case, but of course Pulev did tell the truth because those videos are out there, and I don't think she realized that somebody was going to expose those videos. But the real big joke on that is that's Pulev's first fight in the United States. He's 37, 38 years old. He just doesn't have to come back to the United States, and guess what? this is all for nothing. So I have to agree, yeah, she wants to be famous, because if that video did not get all those clicks and these secondhand ragtag media outlets did not make such a big deal about it and social media didn't talk about it for so much, I don't think there would have been a lawsuit at all. There would have been nothing. It would have went, one ear and out the other. Unless maybe she was acting like that and somebody had contacted her media outlet that she worked for and said, we've seen your reporter out there and she was doing this, this, and this, and now all of a sudden she's got to save her job.
She's not getting nothing. You'll see.
No.
Okay, something that I know you want to talk about, a fighter we both think is exceptional in Oleksandr Gvozdyk. He relinquished his cruiserweight title, and he's now going to be competing in the heavyweight division. Rumor has it, it's not officially announced, but it's pretty close to it. Carlos Takam will be his first opponent. But should he get by Carlos Takam, he gets an immediate shot at the world title. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, you have to blame the WBO for that. Also, they came out with the super champion. A lot of people don't realize the WBO's had that super champion. It wasn't until after the World Boxing Super Series did more people understand that WBO had that super champion, which gives you the option of either fighting the champion in the division above or the division below if you should choose to do so. So Usyk, of course, is going to follow the money. I don't blame him for relinquishing that WBA title. The WBA has become a headache for fighters. Carlos Takam, I believe, is a very good test. He's going to let Usyk and his team know how he can take the punch of a heavyweight and how a heavyweight can deal with his punch. And so, crazy thing is that, Usyk is what heavyweights used to be, 6'3" with the 78-inch reach. And to us nowadays, it sounds tiny. But I was talking to Steve Stoller yesterday, the boxing judge, and he was telling me about his friendship with Evander Holyfield, and he was showing me some pictures of him and Holyfield together. And he was actually bigger than Holyfield. And remember, Evander Holyfield, the former cruiserweight champion, undisputed, and an Olympic medalist. He fought Lennox Lewis. He fought Riddick Bowe, both big guys with a hard punch, both over 6'5". Evander Holyfield, he had also fought, I believe, Nikolai Valuev at one point in time. David Hay, a former cruiserweight champion, who's also 6'3". He won his title from the 7-foot Nikolai Valuev. He could hit like a freight train. He went the distance, even though it was a very, embarrassing performance against Vladimir Klitschko. So it's not, it's not, to sit here and think that maybe he'll be successful when you look at these other guys is, it's not reaching, in my opinion, especially when you factor in his boxing ability. Whether it's going to happen, I don't know, but it's just not, unimaginable.
You make a good point, and Evander Holyfield is a great example, except I notice a couple of big differences, at least in my opinion. Evander Holyfield made the move earlier in his career, I believe, to heavyweight. And over time, he did blossom into what I would refer to as a legit heavyweight. I mean, he was no 240-pounder, but he was a solid 220. This guy is 32 years old right now. He's a southpaw, which is good. He's 6'3". My thought is this: he has weighed 200 pounds or more in 5 of his 16 fights, Dax. They were all in the beginning of his career. So the heaviest he ever was 206. So it's conceivable that he puts on another 20 pounds and puts it on right. So you're looking at a 226, 230 pounder, which is pretty big. But I can't help but compare him to an Ortiz. Luis Ortiz is 6'4" southpaw. He comes in at 240 pounds. Is he going to be as good as an Ortiz at heavyweight? I mean, the boxing ability is similar.
No, the boxing ability is not even similar at all. Usyk and Ortiz, how can you even put them in the same breath when talking about boxing ability? Usyk, his boxing ability is levels above. Matter of fact, if you just went on boxing ability, not size and power, on boxing ability, he's levels above any heavyweight there is. There's no Anthony Joshua. I don't care if it's Dillian White, Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury. And if you just went on that skill-wise, they're not a better boxer than Usyk. They're great boxers, but they're not a better boxer than Usyk. It's their size combined with that's going to be the issue for Usyk. And can Usyk manage to come up to that 225, 230-pound range and not slow down? Is he still going to be able to, pivot as well? Is he still going to be able to throw those combinations? And is he going to be able to bring a little bit of power with him, because he's going to have to bring some power with him to make these bigger guys respect him a little bit, at least enough to make them not want to just roll right in there and steamroll him. And that's going to be his biggest hurdle, in my opinion. Not saying he's going to take over the division, not saying he's going to beat Joshua and he's going to beat Wilder or any of the other guys. I'm just saying it's not, it's not unfeasible, in my opinion.
When I say boxing ability, he obviously has the movement over any heavyweight. But what I was referring more to, and I guess I should have been more precise with what my point was, the counterpunching ability of an Ortiz is similar to the counterpunching ability of Usyk. The difference with Usyk is he does have movement. So the question is going to be exactly what you just asked. If he can't hurt a heavyweight and he can outbox them by movement and working his jab and mixing it up occasionally with a left. Does his opponents, who are generally going to be the top heavyweights anyway, are generally going to have a couple of inch height advantage and probably 20 or more pounds weight advantage, and not fat guys, will they be able to just steamroll him, get him against the ropes, get him in the corners, and neutralize his movement and overall boxing ability? I mean, that's his biggest battle, don't you think?
I believe so. And again, yes, that's going to be his biggest hurdle. Can he make these guys respect him with his power? Even at cruiserweight, he's not known as a power puncher. It's the accumulation and his overall boxing ability and how he delivers his punches that kind of freezes his guys there, because they don't know how to react. Can he do that at heavyweight? We'll find out, obviously. I think Carlos Takam is a good test to gauge whether or not he's going to be able to do that. And if he can't, against Carlos Takam, manage to keep Takam from coming forward, or manage to at least have Takam go on the back foot a few times, he does have all his other titles. He does have that lineal cruiserweight title. So this is a win-win situation for him.
I tell you one. Styles make fights, Dax. I mean, that's the old saying. But I'll tell you one thing. I think Usyk, despite assuming he doesn't have, the same kind of power, or etc., I think he outboxes and beats a Deontay Wilder in a boxing match. I can't see Deontay Wilder being able to connect with Usyk and his defensive prowess. What's your thoughts?
Well, that just brings up what you were stating on that size. Is these guys are so big and they hit so hard, they only need one punch. That's even with the other opponents that are 6'5" and 240, 250 pounds. So a guy that's 6'3" and only 215, 220, is he going to be able to really deal with that? So it'll be interesting. Again, it's boxing, and you have to credit the guy for taking a step up and for going after it.
One last question for you, Dax. Earlier in the show, I started talking about the improbable AJ Deontay Wilder matchup. At least I say improbable, meaning this year or even next. If the fight happens, it's going to happen down the road. I still can't get off the risk versus reward, and I think that all the fighters involved, and I'm going to say all three, Wilder and AJ, of course, are the main two that everyone wants to see fight, but you got to sprinkle in Tyson Fury there as well. I mean, these guys, obviously, we all know what they're trying to do, marinate a fight, so the proportions are so big that the money is just, out of this world, which, in my opinion, it's there now, but I guess they're assuming it's going to get even higher. The risk in this division is like no other. And, taking opponents lightly and thinking you're going through the motions could send all that money down the drain. When do you say when? And do you think they are making the right move by holding off?
I think that they're hoping this whole marination stage of the era, like Mayweather-Pacquiao, for example, will bring it to this epic proportions. But again, as I always say, there's a chance that one of them gets upset. Who knows? Miller may upset Joshua, or Brazil may upset Wilder, and all of a sudden, both those guys become contenders. Or, whoever gets upset becomes a contender. Now they're not a champion, and now all of a sudden they have to fight for a title again. Of course, there's people in the chat room that want to say, well, you don't know what you're talking about. You've never seen this. You know what? You don't know the business of boxing, and it's the comments like that tell you exactly what these guys are doing to themselves in terms of this fight. One loss by either one of those guys, all of a sudden, because boxing fans are so unforgiving, you're forgotten. And that's how the sport is, So when something's peak like that, take advantage of it, because you're never going to get this $100 million payday again.
They're rolling the dice, man, because if you're right, if a Miller upsets an Anthony Joshua, and a Dominic Brazil upsets a Deontay Wilder, or just one gets upset, they don't step into the $100 million purse. That's the part I think they don't get. If a Miller upsets AJ, he and Deontay aren't making $100 million. It's the combination of Deontay and AJ that'll generate $100. I think AJ and Tyson Fury generates $100 million. I'm not so sure a rematch with Fury Wilder does. Maybe I'm wrong. What's your quick thoughts on that?
The rematch of those two, I don't know why neither one of those guys wants to go after that. I believe that if this was just me and I was making these matches, I would want the rematch to happen, and then whoever wins that one goes against Joshua, and then whoever wins that fights the loser of the other one. I mean, you have yourself a great round robin there, and even if, you don't match those up, you throw in a Dillian White, you have yourself 4 guys that are going to be big draws, that are going to put on sensational shows, the fans are going to like, and the money is there for them all. And by waiting and marinating it, again, because the fans are so unforgiving in this sport, they're taking a chance. Even if you look bad, you don't have to lose, you just have to look like really poor, and then all of a sudden the fans don't want to pay attention anymore, or they insist because you had an off night, you were overrated, you were you're a hype machine, and so on and so forth. Look what they did to Lomachenko because he was knocked down.
No, I agree. Dax, great job as usual, and we'll look forward to you next week, brother.
All right, everybody, enjoy the weekend.
That's Dax Khan, and you can check out his column up on BillyCBoxing.com. Listen, I'm going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have my man Alex Papali join us, so don't go nowheres.
Billy C will be right back.
Do you have osteoarthritis in one or both knees? If you have osteoarthritis, Medicare, Obamacare, or other health insurance? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a prescription strength solution for osteoarthritis of the knees, covered by Medicare at little to absolutely no cost to you. We also offer a prescription strength topical pain relief ointment that can be used for pain experienced on other areas of your body. Our experienced staff will work with your doctor and handle all of your Medicare or insurance paperwork. Best of all, your prescription directly to your home for free. Will you qualify for a prescription strength solution for arthritis of the knee, or for a topical pain relief ointment covered by Medicare or private insurance at little or no cost to you?
Find out for free by calling the Back and Knee Pain Center at 1-800-604-1072. That's 1-800-604-1072, 1-800-604-1072.
Medical alarms for people who fall or have medical emergencies. You never think you'll need one until you do. Hi, I'm Lonnie Anderson for Advantage Alert. Today, our advanced systems locate and protect people inside and outside their homes, plus when they're on the road, allowing users with the press of a button to speak with an operator who can summon help. And even after 30 years, Advantage Alert's products remain amazingly affordable.
Call 800-985-1705.
Addiction is an epidemic in America. If you or someone you love is struggling with addiction, you need to call the R360 Network now.
I'm Ken Seeley, author, addiction recovery specialist, and former addict. R360 is a nationwide network of addiction recovery specialists that I personally selected and recommend.
The call is free, the consultation is free. If you have private insurance, your treatment could be covered with no out-of-pocket cost.
Call 800-705-0023.
Addiction.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. These medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace?
Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Hey, fight fans, check out KOFantasyBoxing.com. KO Fantasy Boxing is boxing's only trademarked fantasy game. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Select your own gym, your own fighters, track them through a season that can last from 3 months to a year, depending upon which league you join. You got to check this out, man, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Join it today. Again, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. And tell them Billy C sent ya.
The one, the only, Don King.
Makes me feel good, Billy, to have you, the #1 show in the country, talking boxing with Billy. So I invite each and every American that's listening to this great show to tune in, because we want you to be there with Billy and me.
Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C., the only radio host man enough to take a punch from Mike Tyson.
Wait a minute, man. Hold on there. Jeremy, man, I need you to take this one, all right?
Wait, what? No way. I can't do this.
Need I remind you I'm Billy C., damn it? Now put on that mustache and get in there.
Hey, look at me. I'm Billy C. Crap.
The undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad that you could be with us today. And speaking of being with us today, joining us right now is my man Alex Perpali. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, Billy C. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Let's talk about, let's first talk about the Wilder, Anthony Joshua. I'm scared that this fight may not happen. And when I say may not happen, I mean may not happen when it should. It most certainly will happen at some point. But I think that fight, and make no mistake, I think that fight should have already happened. But I believe it should happen this year or January at the absolute latest. And I fear that it will not. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the window's closing on this year. But, let's see what happens with Wilder's fight with Brazil and Joshua's fight with Big Baby Miller. It could be that, by the middle of June, we're all walking around with smiles on our face because the fight's been set. I think you're right. I think we're still going to wait for it a while. But, let's give them the benefit of the doubt, I guess, at least. Let them get rid of the guys in front of them first. It's heavyweight boxing. That's not a foregone conclusion. It's very likely that they'll both win. But, anything could happen. I do think that, it's definitely what fight fans want to see. And, I think that's the biggest knock. Yesterday, I watched boxing all day long. And there was, one really competitive fight. And it was guys with 10 fights each. Then they were both undefeated. And, they were put in the ring together. It made for a good fight. That Fowler versus Fitzgerald match on DAZN, I thought was the best fight of the day in terms of competition. So, that's what people want to see. They're young guys fighting each other. The window is closing on that, But, yeah, it's what people want to see. Who knows? This waiting for money, it hurts fans.
The fights that people want to see, So you're talking about, two young fighters, generally two young up-and-coming fighters. Usually we see that from England because they've been doing that, and that's not a problem for them. That's why I believe strongly that the UK carries the sport on their back. But with that said, there's no problem with that. The problem lies with the fan base and those pesky casual fans that you admire so much. The truth of the matter is that you put two young 10-0 guys against each other, let's say, the loser goes off into oblivion, which shouldn't be the case. That's what happens in this sport. So if you have a hot prospect and you're a management team, whether you're the manager, promoter, whatever, you're trying to prevent at all costs for your prospect to go off into oblivion. So you reduce the risk that they have, and at the end of the day, you're reducing the possibility of that fighter getting better. It's a terrible trickle-down effect, and what we end up with is what's happening now. I mean, risk versus reward is probably the most agreed upon statement for the sport of boxing. So with that said, how do you turn down $120 million over 3 fights where you're guaranteed? Nobody's saying anything about losing in there and not getting your money. If you close the deal with regardless of the outcomes and you sign a 3-fight deal for $120 million, I can't see making more than that for a 1-fight deal. Like, let's say you do a 1 fight. Well, how many fights will it take you to get to that 1-fight deal where you're going to make that kind of money? It doesn't make any financial sense. And then, oh, by the way, we add the risk of not seeing the fight at all to the mix. So I don't understand it, quite honestly.
Yeah, and I think both these guys are, jockeying for, to be in the power position. At least it certainly seems that, I don't know. I don't want to point fingers at any single, at one guy over the other. But I do think that it would be nice to see it. Those 3 guys, Fury, Wilder, Joshua. That's who we want. If Usyk gets added to the mix, hey, I would be thrilled to see Joshua Usyk or Wilder Usyk or Fury Usyk. That's awesome, the idea that he's going to try to be a heavyweight. I don't blame him at all for taking a guy like Carlos Takam. He's got to, in terms of moving up, there's a few things you want to test in that division, and one of them is, can I take their power? And Takam would be a good guy to do that against. He's been in there with some of the best, and I think that he still showed. One of my favorite fights of last year was a brawl that Takam had. Was it with Derek Chisora, I think? So yeah, I think there's still a lot of exciting things going on in boxing, and even in the heavyweight division. But you're right. We want to see Wilder Joshua. We want to see Wilder Fury 2. We want to see Fury Joshua. Anything else is, just sort of a holding pattern until we get there. And it does seem like, it's not going to happen until all the deals are right and everybody can get really rich. And that's unfortunate because, the fans suffer. No matter what, the fight's going to be a big fight. And it might be more than 1 fight. But as you can see, look at Fury, Fury versus Wilder. That seemed like a foregone conclusion that we'd see a rematch, and now nothing. So I don't know.
When you look at the landscape of the heavyweight division, and the top 3 dogs in the order in which I believe they are, AJ, Deontay, and Tyson Fury, that next group of fighters, which consists of Dillian White, still Alexander Povetkin, Jarrell Miller, Pulov, Luis Ortiz. Even some young fighters like Kauznaki and Joe Joyce, and you got former champion Joseph Parker. These are all real fighters. Okay, now if the AJs and Wilders and Tyson Furies are picking the guys closer to the bottom of those lists than to the top. Well, then what it does is it leaves room for the other top guys to fight each other to earn a spot, which I like. But the question becomes, if the powers that be for Team Wilder and Team Joshua and even Team Fury for that matter are trying to position their fighters to make the maximum, they're not going to go after a guy that, let's say, a Dillian White takes on a Luis Ortiz, or a Dillian White takes on a Kauznacki, or Joseph Parker takes on a Kauznacki, or one of those Povetkin against Pulov. And you see these guys in good fights and they rise, and then all of a sudden, is a guy like a Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua really want to risk that $100 million payday by fighting a real fighter? I would think not. So to prolong the matchup, the inevitable matchup between each other, they're going to be scraping the bottom for the heavyweights that are going to look good on paper, that aren't going to give them much trouble. And the way these guys are being forced to fight each other, it's kind of making it a lot harder. I think the time to sign the paper, whether they do it for a couple of fights down the road, I think they need to secure their futures now with a financial agreement in place. It could be a 3-fight deal culminating to fighting each other, and let them fight 2 other fighters to make some coin. Win, lose, or draw, they still culminate to fight each other. That's what I would be looking for if I was part of those teams, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds good. I think anything that puts them on a collision course is what what fight fans want to see. I don't know. I mean, in terms of, I kind of think that, for me, it's I kind of think Fury and Joshua are tied for number 1 position, and Wilder is number 2. That's in my mind. But yeah, I think we're going to all argue about these things until we start seeing the matches. I don't know. To me, I got a lot of answers on December 1st. I think Fury beat Wilder and beat him pretty convincingly, and would beat him every time they met. I think the other thing that's fascinating about Tyson Fury is this sport's about styles, and Tyson Fury has a style everyone's going to have trouble coping with. And I think that that puts him in a great position. I think he realizes that, and obviously Top Rank realizes it too, because they decided rather than have a rematch, let's keep marinating, and we'll start having defenses, and keep letting those the 2 super fights marinate. And that's unfortunate for fans, but eventually these guys will collide, I think. But you're right. I think we might have to wait till 2020.
I agree with you that I think that Tyson Fury beat Deontay Wilder hands down. But I also think that Deontay Wilder scored a victory of sorts, and I think it forever changed Tyson Fury. And that was that final knockdown that Tyson Fury dragged himself up, surprisingly got to his feet, and not only continued but finished the round and the fight on his feet. Those kinds of knockdowns, for all intent and purposes, should have been a knockout. But those kinds of knockdowns, especially from a big man like Tyson Fury, who hit that canvas pretty hard in that final knockdown, and hit it pretty hard in the first one, but it wasn't as devastating. That took something out of him. And I don't know if he's going to be the same fighter. I know that sounds drastic, but I just have a feeling about that. And I'm not so sure that a fighter like Anthony Joshua, who's more technically solid, wouldn't have more opportunities to land a solid punch on Tyson Fury versus a guy like Deontay Wilder, who's a one-trick pony looking for the bombs. And as you know better than anyone, Alex, I mean, a good boxer loves the wild fighters because they can stay in the pocket and pick them apart. And, Deontay Wilder can't pick anybody apart. That's not what he does. But Anthony Joshua, he could. And Tyson Fury isn't exactly a power puncher. So I don't know. I think Tyson Fury probably had his best performance in a draw against Deontay Wilder.
It could be, but well, let's see how he looks against Schwartz. I think that's what sort of now we're waiting for is with this the state of the heavyweight division now. At least those top three guys is they all have to look good against their respective opponents, and they got to keep looking good to keep the interest in them fighting each other. So I don't know. In a way, it's sort of a catch-22. If you make the deals with these guys, sure, you risk losing and you make a lot of money, but then maybe that's it. Your guy gets beat and nobody wants to see it again, whatever. Or you keep fighting guys that keep your name in the press and keep you winning, but you risk alienating fans who don't want to watch you fight against guys that they think you're going to automatically beat. So, yeah, this is, it is what it is, as they say these days. I think that's why the Usyk factor is intriguing. I think the other thing about it is that he was one of the he is by far one of the biggest badasses in the sport. I thought of him as Fighter of the Year. I think a lot of people did last year. And so that idea of him moving up is very intriguing. I'd like to see it. I don't think there's anyone, in terms of that's more intriguing than him, that he's like taking an opportunity away from. I'm not sure I agree with that, but I do think that it's going to be a long it's a long task indeed for him to try to beat these guys because they're monsters. As much as he's a great boxer, you still have to deal with the size and the power at heavyweight, and that could be insurmountable for him. We'll have to see.
And you made a point before. You said, "Oh, he's taken Carlos Takam, and he's a banger. He'll feel how it is to get hit by a heavyweight." I look at it another way. Carlos Takam is a short heavyweight, so he's actually going to be taller than him. Something that he may not, be dealing with in any real heavyweight fight that would mean big financial gain and possibly a world title. I mean, none of the top heavyweights are. I mean, think about the top heavyweights. Anthony Joshua is 6'6" plus. Deontay Wilder's 6'7". Tyson Fury is 6'8". I mean, this guy is short compared to them. So for him to take on a short heavyweight, I think, is stupid. I think they should have went and found, the perfect opponent for him is a David Price, a guy like him, somebody that's tall and big and has somewhat of a punch. Test your skill set against him. I can't help but look at Usyk as being a more movable, because I have to make sure I choose the right words, because Dax pointed that out. I did not choose the right words. But I think that Luis Ortiz is a bigger version of Usyk with counterpunching ability, not as much movement and straight-on boxing ability in terms of setting his punches up with jabs and what have you. But as a southpaw, counterpunching, 6'4", an inch bigger. That guy gives me an example of what a good Usyk could be like. And I just think the heavyweights are too big. Dax also used Evander as an example. I don't know if Evander, if he entered the landscape of the heavyweight division today in the same manner in which he did it 20 years ago, I'm not so sure he would be as successful, because all the top dogs in the heavyweight division are 6'4" and bigger. They are 230 pounds and bigger. They can move. They do have boxing ability. They're not Nikolai Valuevs who did nothing. I mean, this is a different era from athleticism, Alex. And I think that if a guy like Usyk does move up and he is successful, you're talking about all-time greatness.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's why I'm so curious, because he seems like the guy with the guts to do it. Every fight that he's taken has been a challenge, just about. You don't see him taking opponents like you see some other guys now. And I don't mean to pick on any particular fighter, but I mean, look at Usyk's record. Every fight was a challenge. So I don't know. I do think that, that's something, if you're a fan of the sport, it's hard not to root for that kind of a guy, to at least want to see those kind of matchups. You're right. Evander Holyfield's rise to heavyweight, they were different sort of animals, the heavyweight division back then. These guys are monsters. They are all gigantic. So it's going to be fascinating to see. You're right. I mean, a David Price at least would have had sort of the dimensions. But as we saw yesterday, I'm not sure David Price has the really anything else other than the dimensions to really test a guy like Usyk. I mean, I think that was one of the things that was really fascinating about that bizarre fight yesterday. And that was more, Ali had bitten him once earlier. If you go back and watch that fight, in the third round, they get into a clinch, and the one of the announcers actually made a point that Price said something to the referee. He was mad. The announcer thought it was a headbutt. But if you look, he bit him in the chest. So it was something, I don't know, you saw Kash Ali came to the ring with the black trunks and the black shoes. I thought maybe he was a little, then he's biting him. What is he, conjuring Mike Tyson?
He must have been, Alex, he must have been starving. I mean, come on.
Must have been hungry because, I couldn't believe you actually could see the bite marks. That was crazy. It was a weird thing because that was the other thing that was strange about it. He was having his best round. However, he had gotten tagged again.
He was hurt. He hurt.
He got tagged again with another big shot. So it was very similar to the Mike Tyson. Why Mike Tyson bit Evander was to sort of get himself out of trouble, to, try to do something animalistic to take the other guy out of his game, and maybe you'd somehow, if nobody noticed it, you'd get away with it. I don't know. That's the thing that's crazy about it, because, and that's why I love that Netflix thing about Michael Bent, Losers, that first episode of the show Losers. This sport is amazing because the level of visibility for, your potential defeat is enormous. So there's a layer of sort of humiliation that goes with losing in boxing, especially getting knocked out. And some guys can't handle that. And you saw Ali didn't want to do that. He didn't want to get knocked out. He'd rather get DQ'd than knocked out. So it was weird. I don't know. It was... You don't see too many bite fights, but there's another one for the history books.
Well, remember, Mike Tyson was doing it in retaliation because of all the headbutts he was getting. That's what came out later. But either way, you shouldn't ought to do that. I mean, how hard... First of all, you say to yourself, when you saw David Price's, the marks that Kash Ali left on him, each tooth, which had to be bitten through the mouthpiece, right? So you say, oh, my God, how hard did he bite down? Then you flash back to Mike Tyson actually taking a chunk of Evander Holyfield's ear off, and it's just amazing how hard they must have bit down.
Yeah.
Give somebody a cheeseburger. Feed the poor bastard, do something. But one last thing on Usyk. He's only weighed 200 pounds or more 5 times in his 16-fight pro career. In his pro debut, he weighed the heaviest, I believe, at 206 against Felipe Romero. He's got to put on 20 pounds, Alex. I'm thinking that he should be able to put it on okay, but we're talking about how great of a mover he is and a boxer and all these things. Is that going to suffer with 20 extra pounds?
Maybe, see, that's just it. I'm not sure he does have to put on 20 pounds because you're right. That might slow him down. He might be better off staying light, like a 210 heavyweight, kind of like a Chris Bird. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I think that's what makes it so fascinating is that you have not only this element of it's a Mount Everest to climb in terms of the titles we're talking about, the heavyweight championship of the world, but it's also there's these physical elements that he has to beat monstrous people. He has to make himself physically larger to a degree, but he has to balance that with still being able to box the way he always has. So yeah, it's something that sure I'm fascinated to watch. But again, we have 3 fights that could be made, even if he doesn't move up.
No,
and that's,
I know.
You know, so,
no, he's moving up. But here's the thing: the size. It's so different today. 20 years later, think of it this way: you're a historian. Jack Johnson was considered a monster in his day at 205 pounds. Jack Dempsey, Rocky Marciano never hit 200 pounds as heavyweights. Even in the Mike Tyson era, Muhammad Ali, I don't think he ever weighed 220 pounds. Maybe 220 was towards the end of his career. These guys just weren't big fighters when they were considered big. Even big George Foreman wasn't as big in his early days as we're seeing these guys now. You're seeing 6'7", 6'6" guys, 240 pounds, chiseled, Ron Lyle bodies. I mean, these guys are Adonises. I mean, it's hard for me to. And we saw a great example of it with Errol Spence against Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia is an elite fighter, one of the best, pound for pound, in my opinion. An all-time great, in my opinion. And he just looked less than ordinary against Errol Spence. And the old saying, a good big man beats a good little man, and that's true. And it's going to happen with Usyk. If Usyk can box, and he's a Tyson Fury in the ring defensively, and he can box better, and move around and jab the hell out of his opponent. All it's going to take is one shot. And if he does that, and if he does box, and he does move, is he going to be able to score enough without getting counterpunched by a guy that's going to be presumably bigger with a long arm? I don't know. It's a tough decision. It's like when people ask me, Jack Dempsey, one of my favorite all-time fighters, would he have stood a chance against a Lennox Lewis or a Klitschko or AJ? Probably not. Rocky Marciano, you think he stands a chance with these guys? Probably not. I mean, I don't want to say it, but it's true,
Well, and I think that's what makes it intriguing is that, I mean, remember, it's a different landscape today. If Billy Conn versus Joe Louis happened today, Billy Conn wins because we're only going 12 rounds. So I think that's one of the things that's interesting about this is that, the idea of Usyk outboxing Anthony Joshua or Deontay Wilder, I think it's possible, but he's got to keep himself safe from those great big equalizers, and that'll make it fascinating. While it happens, I don't know. I'd like to see it.
That's for sure. Alex, great job, and we'll look forward to you next week, brother.
All right, Billy C., take care.
That's Alex Papali, and you can catch him here next time. So, interesting stuff about the moves in the heavyweight division, and of course what we got in the plans for potential showdowns with the top dogs in the division, being, of course, Anthony Joshua, who I believe is the best heavyweight in the world today, Deontay Wilder being the second, and Tyson Fury, all top dogs in the heavyweight division. Makes you wonder, and I still can't help but think about, Deontay Wilder turning down all that money, and it's always about risk versus reward. And as fighters move on, the risk every day becomes more and more. for these fighters. And I'm just, I think we're forever going to wonder if Deontay Wilder did the right thing by turning down all this money. Only time will tell. And Sal, I know you are adamant about your feelings that Deontay should have taken the money, especially the last offer of $120 million. Risk versus reward. I mean, what do you think?
For you, I mean, I would love. We should start a segment. Let me give 5 minutes to Deontay Wilder 1 week of just.
Hey, turn your volume off. You got something going on in the back there. All right, so I'm just saying, do you think that it's going to turn out that he made a blunder, or is he going to come out looking smart by turning down all that money?
No way he's going to look smart with this move. No, this is bad advisement. I mean, he had $100 million 3-fight deal, and you turned it down.
Well, apparently it was up to 120, and he was guaranteed, reported by ESPN, he was guaranteed 120 win, lose, or draw for a 3-fight deal. 1 fight against the guy he's fighting anyway, Dominic Breazeale, for $20 million, and then 2 fights against Anthony Joshua, guaranteed 40 plus each one, plus cuts of pay-per-view, et cetera, and he turned it down. I think it's a stupid move, and here's the most baffling part. Word has come out that he's had a deal that he's still under contract with Showtime. And Showtime apparently has made it clear that they don't want to lose Deontay Wilder for being part of the network. My question to you, Mr. Sal Senecola, is do you think that Showtime would possibly open up their pocketbooks and offer Deontay Wilder a sweeter package than 3 fights for $120 million?
I don't think they will offer more than that money, but I think they would sweeten it up a little bit to enhance their relationship contractually. But, like I said, Deontay Wilder, I'll just give you some advice that Chicky Ferrara shared with me. You've got to be smart. You've got to make the right moves. This is your only one time around. This is not a rehearsal. This is your life, pal. And get in, make the sacrifices, do what you got to do for a couple of years, and get the hell out. And if you can't live on $120 million in a few short years, then I'm sorry, you're going to be paying taxes anyway. So, think you're going to get out of that. You're going to get about $60 million, $70 million, maybe $80 million. But the bottom line is this, pal. You only have a few short years, and guess what? These moves you make now are going to impact your future. And if you could fight for $100 million or $120 million in a few fights, do it. Do it. And, I can understand your loyalties and everything else, but you got to be loyal to your family and to yourself, pal. All right? This isn't just fun and games. This is business. And you got to look at it as a business standpoint. You're a great talent. You've got a lot of things going for you, but you've also tripped a few times by putting your foot in your mouth and not making the right decisions. I'm telling you, you should rethink this whole thing and take the 3-fight deal for $120 million. You're never going to see that again. And you getting in the ring with Joshua, every fight you guys take that aren't against each other is one more rung in the ladder that is never going to happen. And you're not going to fight him for $120 million for one fight. So look at this deal all over again. See if you can make an announcement that you are reconsidering and making a deal. And, like I said, you got to have your loyalties. I respect that and appreciate that. But look in the mirror and be loyal to yourself and your family as well.
The 100. Let's say $100 million. Okay, I think he's looking to make $100 million for one fight. So to me, okay, let's say Floyd Mayweather ruined it by doing the same thing. Him and Manny Pacquiao fighting for that kind of money, and they made us wait, et cetera, et cetera. And at the end of the day, they didn't care what they did to the sport. They made their money, and that was the end of that. Now, Deontay Wilder could be thinking the same thing, and his advisors could be advising him for the same thing. Hey, look at Floyd. Floyd made $100 million, blah, blah, blah. Hold your ground, hold your ground. But I think it's the part from this point where we are right now to that point potentially for $100 million is where the risk factor lies, Sal. And the truth of the matter is by signing that $120 million, you're guaranteeing that you're going to get $120. By waiting for that one fight against Anthony Joshua or a rematch with Tyson Fury where you get your $100 million, the road and path leading to it is where the risk is. And if anything along the way, puts a flat tire in the machine that's rolling, now all of a sudden you're losing tons and tons of money. The most important aspect of this, Sal, is the guys that are advising him, they're not losing anything. They're getting paid either way. I think I think the risk versus reward is the issue that's not being looked at here.
Well, that's just it. You have the risk reward, you have the time frame, and like I said, you're looking at one of the biggest matches ever in the history of boxing, and it will be legendary. And I think that every time they take an opponent in between, gives that risk. Like you said, there's a risk reward. And why take that risk when you can go direct and have it solidified and contractually bound and reap the benefits from it? I think it's all good said and done, but you can bring the horse to the water, you can't make him drink.
Speaking of Floyd Mayweather, apparently he's getting ready to go to trial. This guy this is why rumor has it he's going to be announcing another fight. And
he's got tax season coming up right now.
Well, exactly. And that's the repetitiveness. He fights when he owes tax money, and if he had half a brain, he would save some of the money that he made. But nonetheless, rumor does have it that he's going to be announcing a fight over the next week or so, and hopefully it'll be against Manny Pacquiao. But here's the thing. He's battling a former girlfriend, Chantel Jackson, and claimed that she taped him, illegally and all of this stuff. And she's now claiming him that he stole over $3 million in her personal jewelry and stuff like that. My point is this. It doesn't shock me that Floyd is involved in this kind of he said, she said. But what does shock me is this guy just can't seem to stay out of, you could say the limelight, but in this case, it's trouble. Eventually, it's going to catch up with him, Sal. And if for a guy like Floyd, who's where he supposedly is right now mentally, why doesn't he just, try to keep his nose clean? I don't get it.
Well, again, it's the shenanigans. You can wrap around the package, but the package is going to stay the same. I'll have to tell you the story about the about the frog and the
Prince, the frog and the Cinderella type person, the princess, whatever. Yeah, it's one of those. You kiss the frog, he turns into a prince. That story.
Yeah. This is more of an analogized dissertation about a frog and a scorpion.
You gonna tell us or what?
Yeah, I am. There was this frog sitting by this river, and a scorpion comes up and says, "Hey, can I hop on your back and you swim me across to the other side? I got to get over there." And the frog said, "But you're a scorpion. You might sting me and poison me and will and kill me." And the scorpion said, "Now why would I do that? Because I'm on your back. You're swimming across. If I do that to you, I'm going to die as well." And the frog thought about it. Said, "Yeah, you got a point there. All right, hop on my back. I'll swim us across." So the scorpion did hop on the back of the frog, and the frog's in the water swimming across to the other side. Halfway across, the frog goes, "Ow!" He felt a pinch, a sting. And the frog looked up at him and said, "Hey, you weren't supposed to do that. You said you wouldn't do it, and now we're both going to die." And the scorpion said, "I couldn't help myself. I am what I am." Well, that's it. That's Popeye. I am what I am, and that's all that I am. You know, it's hard. We say it all the time. We try to reinvent it. We try to rewrap it. Leopard doesn't change its spots. That's another way to put it. That saves the frog and the scorpion.
Well, it's a shame that this story actually cost the life of a scorpion and a frog. And normally we would say that no frog or scorpion got hurt during this tale that Sal just told us, but in this particular case, they both perished, and I feel awful about that. I might have to go.
Too, I hope you don't hear from Peter.
I hope we both Sal and I promised that we're going to go seek some professional help after the show so we can deal with coping with the loss. But I have an email here. I would like to read.
Do that.
Well, it's not really an email. It was a text from my man Augie from Riverhead. Riverhead is out on the island.
Yes,
he says basically he told me that he agreed that with us that Deontay Wilder is basically stupid for not taking the money. He says anything can happen in the ring, and that he feels that Wilder should take the guaranteed money. Now, I've talked to Augie several times, and you know, he's like you. He likes Deontay, and he feels that his power is pretty potent. So he feels that he should take the guaranteed money. And he actually said to me, you know, it reminds me of a rumor I had once heard. He said, I heard that somebody dropped Rocky Marciano in sparring, and he wanted to know if there was any truth to that. And, you know, he was using that as an example of anything can happen, even a guy like Rocky Marciano. And I want to tell Augie, yes, it is true. Rocky Marciano was preparing for his fight against Harry Matthews in 1952, and he had hired a light heavyweight to come in and spar because Harry Matthews wasn't really a big cat, but he brought in Jimmy Sorello, who was a light heavyweight at the time, 28 wins at the time of when he fought. When he was sparring with Rocky, he was 28 wins, 2 losses, and 2 draws. He ended up finishing his career at light heavyweight, 28 wins, 5 losses, and 2 draws, with only 9 knockouts. Now, this is a guy that was not known for his punching power, and, oh, by the way, he was in the light heavyweight division, and he did indeed drop Rocky Marciano in the second round of their sparring session. Rocky claimed that he slipped during this supposed knockdown, but everyone else that witnessed it, including Rocky's team, said it was a legitimate knockdown. Now, whether they said that at the time to try and help sell tickets to the fight or not, I don't know. But the point that Augie was making, Sal, was anything can happen. And he agrees with us that Deontay Wilder, so far, and let's give Deontay credit. So far, he's made us look foolish. We told him he should have taken the $12 million. We told him he should have taken the 15. We told him he should have taken the 25. And now we're telling him to take the 120. So far, every single time, he's anteed up. But I think it's reached its maximum point. What do you think?
I think you just hit it all on the head. That's what I'm trying to say. Deontay, think of this thing. Think where you want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, okay? This is guaranteed. This is guaranteed money. You're not going to want to come out of retirement to have to pay Uncle Sam. This is clean. $120 million over time. You're going to owe about $40 million, and you know, pay it, do it, and take your money and run.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, looking ahead for the future, there's nothing smarter than a 3-fight guaranteed deal, win, lose, or draw. And then, should you win all 3, you're going to make another $100 million the next time out. He's being ill-advised, and it's a shame. But hey, we got some good fights coming up, and also I want to remind everyone about our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week channel. You got to check this out. It's available through all the major streaming services. Through Ginico USA. If you go to their website, GinicoUSA.com, that's GINIKO USA.com, you can see all the other programming that they have, and you can actually sign up for all the information and watch our show. It's free. All you got to do is give them an email address and create a password, and you'll have access to 15 years worth of our shows that we've done over the years. Not only versions of this show, but also live events. Sal and I did our Boxing Revisited. We did many live events. We did pre- and post-fight shows. All of that stuff over the last 15 years is all up there. So definitely tune in anytime, day or night, weekday or weekend, 24/7. But in any event, hey, listen, boys and girls, we promise that we're going to be back here next time. So make sure you tune in next time. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.
Alrighty.